Let's get the ball rolling. We're getting there. We're getting there. Booyaka siya. Kailangan pala na energy, guys, ah. Medyo mahaba yung araw. Wala tingin ko, ah. Yan, isa natin yan. Alright! Boom! Booyaka siya. Kamusta kayo dyan, mga kameta? How are you? Here it is. We have a new king. I mean, officially, we have had the king since the passing of the queen. But now, tapos na rin yung coronation. To be honest, mga kameta, kanina nung pinapanood natin, ina-analyze natin itong coronation ni King Charles III, I was just wondering about how surreal it felt. I think this is a kind of a first coronation, major kind of coronation we have witnessed in our lifetimes. The last time we had something like that was, I think, exactly 70 years ago in 1953 when Queen Elizabeth, the mother of the Corn King back then, took over the British Empire. But it was actually a crumbling British Empire. And now we're talking about the UK that is very, very different, mga kameta. And of course, what also makes this year's coronation quite different is that wala dun si Biden. I don't think there's ever an American president recent memory that has attended coronation. But we have Ferdinand Marcos Jr. BBM. BBM. Yan. Nag-attend dyan sa coronation from the US to the UK. Talagang social na social talagang ating Pangulo. All around the world. Ayan na, pag-usapan natin. Let's talk about a number of things. First of all, what's the relevance of this whole coronation event? What can we expect about King Charles III? What are the challenges for the British monarchy down the road? But more importantly, ano ang bagay to sa Pilipinas? What's the BBM UK Charles III dynamic, right? And what are the things that we have to build on as far as Philippine-UK bilateral relations is concerned? Mga kameta, we actually had the pleasure of interviewing Ambassador Laure Bouffis, the British ambassador to the Philippines, not long ago. Actually, second official interview ko na sa kanya, but I've had the opportunity of having extensive discussion with her, hours and hours throughout the past year or so, at least since the last year's elections. So yun ang i-reflect natin today sa discussion natin, mga kameta. Alright? Okay. And please, stop the comment na kamukha ko si Prince William. Parang alam ko yung ibig niyo sabihin dyan. Kaya talaga... Ayan na, medyo controversial rin pala si Prince William. Akala ko yung isa lang na nagkalat dun sa kanyang biography yung ano. Alright, kailangan natin ng kape. Medyo mahabang araw. Alam niyo ng hameta. Nagme-meta pa tayo. Then back to writings again. Tapos na interview. But anyway, habang wala pang Sabbath day, I'm just want to get all this work out so that back day to Sabbath day. Now, first of all, let me discuss a bit in terms of my general impressions and understanding of the whole coronation process. Alright, mga kameta, let's talk about the coronation process. Now, alam natin na maraming hindi natutuwa sa British monarchy in the United Kingdom, especially mga kabataan, mga kameta. Alright? And we know there are a lot of discussions about whether the monarchy deserves all of the kind of tax breaks, incentives, all sorts of subsidies it's getting from the public, especially now na may cost of living crisis, may austerity, the fallout from the Brexit is still being felt by ordinary British people. In fact, UK is the only major economy at this top 5, top 6 economies that is expected to shrink this year or experience a kind of a recession. So things are not looking very rose-tinted as far as the United Kingdom is concerned. Not to mention Charles himself. Charles III is not necessarily the most popular person in the United Kingdom. Of course, yung mga ibang kameta natin dyan, alam nila yung context. This has a lot to do with the fact that the late Princess Diana was seen as a victim in that relationship. No? Habang usapan yan, manood na lang kayo ng The Crown kung wala kayong time magbasa ng mga biographies or check ng documentaries, etc. Alright? I'm not here to marites about royal family affairs. But this is the political context we're talking about. Now, there are signs na in fairness hindi tone deaf itong bagong king na yan. In fact, I'll discuss to you guys later on, not only he's not tone deaf, it looks like he's actually far more progressive than many people are willing to give him credit for. Now, again, I'm not a fan of monarchy. I see where people are saying the monarchy has no place in the 21st century. I understand that. I know where they're coming from. I completely also sympathize with people have issues with subsidies, expenditures, etc., of people in position of influence. I get it. At the same time, let's not forget that it's not like the republics we have today are very encouraging too, right? Look at the bunch of clowns or charlatans and populists and demagogues who get elected into office and then act as complete tyrants. Now, compare that dun sa record, mga kameta, ng mga, constitutional monarchies around the world, especially the one that we have in the United Kingdom. Head of state and head of Church of England, yung king ng United Kingdom, but they don't necessarily run the day-to-day affairs in ways that elected presidents do in many countries. Anyway, balikan natin yan, mga kameta. Balikan natin, mga kameta. Let's talk about this. Sino yan? Mamaya natin ng kadam. Ito. Okay. Now, the first thing we need, more austere than decadent yung labas dito sa coronation process. For instance, yung long parade na, I don't know, like 5 miles, naging 1. Yung 8,000 participants, naging 1 or 2,000 participants. So there was a 67-80% reduction in terms of participation, in terms of literally the length of the parade compared to what we had in 1953. There's an adjustment there. But the other thing I want to talk about, mga kameta, is of course, there are some interesting things here. For instance, is the honoring of the Queen Consort. No, that's important again in the context of the whole Diana, Princess Diana, tragedy and drama and all of that. The fact that you have the partner of Charles III getting that kind of coronation, I think that was kind of a closure moment, emotionally, politically, some would even say morally, right? That was also important. We also saw Prince William, sorry, also there, and he was the first one who went there and kind of pledged his allegiance in person and all. And that was special in itself. I think in the past, more people, members of the royal family would do that. So medyo na shorten nila yung coronation also. So it was not only more austere, it was more compact also in terms of the scheduling and all. Now, if you look at King Charles, actually, he's quite an interesting person because despite all the controversies with him, despite all of the, off-the-cuff statements he has made, no, the fact of the matter is that he's actually arguably in a position to be the first woke king in the 21st century. Many would argue that he's actually the first climate king because he has been consistent about showing his concern about climate change for quite a long time, for a very, very long time. And he has had, punta kayo sa YouTube, check it on your own, he has had many passionate speeches in favor of doing something drastic about climate change, mitigating climate change, adapting to climate change, adopting measures that will help with dealing the climate change issues. Not only on the issue of climate change, but we also know that on the LGBTQ rights and marriage equality, or even issue of divorce, for instance, issues that rile up a lot of conservatives, including the US, he's also much more progressive and liberal. Now, he has not officially said anything on the, he has not yet said anything about the LGBTQ rights officially, but we know that Prince William and also the King seem to be much more sympathetic to marriage equality and institutionalized respect, legalized respect for LGBTQ rights in ways that we didn't see with much more conservative variations of the monarchy in the past. So that's quite interesting to keep in mind. So from climate change to LGBTQ rights to marriage equality to divorce to many other issues, more like he's more woke than bloke. That's something that you have to keep in mind. That's very important. Now, he's a king, so he's not supposed to have policy position per se. He's not supposed to be partisan, but he can have something close to general moral political positions on existential threats and concerns facing not only the United Kingdom but the world. In a way, it could be a kind of a elder statesman without being necessarily a statesman, and that's something that is quite important to keep in mind here as far as Charles is concerned. Now, I know na hindi tayo lahat dito dahil sa UK, etc. We're also here to talk about this. Now, something that's also interesting with this year was that, if I'm not mistaken, there was like 2 Filipino nurses, Filipino-British nurses who were there also in the coronation. So that is a kind of a recognition of the importance of the Filipino community, Filipino English or Filipino British community, and especially their contribution doon sa healthcare sector, and especially during the COVID-19 situation, no crisis. So I'm glad to see. I mean, at least I saw a number of comments there about Filipinos or people in Filipinian or something there in the coronation. So I think that was the context. So I'm glad about the integration and not only full respect but recognition of the Filipino people, especially the nursing healthcare community. No, that's very very important, mga kameta, and I'm happy about that. I also like something about what I like also about coronation was it was multi-faith. Walang Islam or Hinduism. Why is it important Islam? Because the mayor of London has a Muslim background and the prime minister has a Hindu background, right? So I was expecting maybe some, and then Sikh pa yating dun sa Scotland, di ba? But anyways, at least you had multi-Christian faith representation, even if he's the head of Church of England. Now you could also see that Bongbong has a very special relationship with the United Kingdom. Now I know may mga nag-react when I said he's British educated. I was not referring to Oxford because we don't know if he ever graduated from there. I mean, we know that he never graduated. Um, but ayan na naman tayo. Ay, ay, ay. Ayan na. Ayan na, ayan na. Ayan na, ayan na. Lawas natin yan kasi gusto kong makita yun eh. Saan yung picture na talagang English gentleman si Marcos Jr., no? Meron yun eh. Di ba? Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, ganito. Alam natin when it comes to Marcos Jr., especially when the father had concerns about, his discipline and work ethic, etc. Pinadala siya sa boarding school sa United Kingdom. So actually, he's educated in United Kingdom. I'm not referring to the college level in terms of graduating from Oxford, but he was also in Oxford. Alam natin yan for a fact. He was in Oxford. Uh, I cannot use the word attended because attended also implies you graduated from Oxford. But he was in Oxford for PPE, at least what, 2 semesters or so or more. But more than that, he had his boarding school in the United Kingdom. I think yung picture niya nasa Oxford siya. Taray. Yun, no? That's it. It's a wrap. May hinahanap talaga akong picture, eh. Meron yung parang medyo bon vivant talaga siya. Ayan! Yan ang hinanap natin, mga kameta. This is it. Ito. Ito ang hinanap ko, mga kameta. Ito yung picture. Talagang, diba? Especial. Especial talaga, especial. That's it. Yan, talaga, oh. Talagang pormang-porma, oh. Porma. That's it. That's it. Yan, kitang-kita natin, 'di ba? Ang ating pangulo, 'di ba? Very 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 posh, 'di ba? Kitang-kita natin 'yan, mga kameta. So, we have a president who's very very familiar and putang very very. We have a president who's quite familiar with the British culture. From what we know, is even an aficionado of British music, culture, underground music, all of that. So very Anglophile, and I think he's the only Anglophile president we have ever had. I'm not sure there's going to be another one soon unless Sandro is there in the mix, diba? Tingnan natin yan. But this is quite something, mga uy, paras kami may pork data. Wait lang. Challenge ako, nasaan yung code ko? Ayan, no? Talagang, tingnan, British talaga yung style natin, I'm usually Italiano, in estilo Italiano. Yeah, yung mga ganon. New York boy. Ayan. Okay, that's it. That's it, mga kameta. May nanalo na. May nanalo na. Uwi na tayo. That's it. Uwi na tayo. May nanalo na. Ayaw na magsalita. Anyway, on a more serious note, I think President Marcos Jr. is actually in good position to push the envelope. No, to push the envelope when it comes talaga paras talaga yung porka, that's yung necktie na conscious ako bigla. No, he is in a very good position to push the boundaries of the bilateral relationship, mga kameta. Tignan nyo naman. Hindi. So, United Kingdom, last time I checked, is still among top six biggest economies on earth. It used to be top five for a very long time. And the United Kingdom is also a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, so one of the P5, one of the big five countries. More than that, more importantly, the UK is also, because it's out of Brexit, it's Brexit. It's out of the United European Union. It's building also its presence on a global level, both on the economic front and also on the strategic military front. So on the strategic military front, for instance, the United Kingdom, mga kameta, has decided to have kind of a permanent deployment of at least two warships to the Indo-Pacific every year to assert its presence in this part of the world. And alam natin that the United Kingdom, of course, is also looking forward to expanding defense cooperation with the Philippines as it also expands defense cooperation with Australia under the AUKUS. No? So this year, actually, according to Ambassador Bufis, um, uh, the defense attaché of the United Kingdom was actually one of the observers dun sa Balikatan. So the British want to get more and more involved in terms of maritime security capability building in the Philippines, also in terms of South China Sea, also in terms of the context of Balikatan Plus. Who knows? Maybe EDCA Club Plus, maybe reciprocal access agreement down the road. Who knows? These are the things in the mix. But the one area I think we can make a lot of improvement in bilateral relations is again in economics. So the other day I talked about how small Philippine-U.S. trade is compared to our Vietnam's trade, for instance, with U.S. or Singapore's investment relations. So if you look at our bilateral trade, for instance, you're talking about just hundreds of millions here, mga kameta. So under $1 billion of exports, under well, barely what $100 million dun sa hindi, sorry. So 604 million yung exports ng Britain to the Philippines, and then the Philippines makanya exports natin dyan. It's not that much, no. So the trade is not that large, mga kameta. I mean, it's like what? Put them together, what? Barely 2 billion, right? Now just compare that, for instance, to UK's trade with some of our neighboring countries. Ang laki ng difference, mga kameta. Ang laki ng difference, mga kameta. Uh, so, so this is just the foreign direct investment of UK. Well, this is chart two. I have to double check if it's total or just British, but just you can look at it yourself. No, I mean the numbers with Vietnam and Singapore is again incomparable. I can talk about, of course, Thailand. I can talk about Malaysia. It's just for consistency of comparison, because yun yung dalawang bansang ginamit natin in the previous talk re US and the Philippines. I just thought that would be also important. So, for instance, you look at the Singapore. Okay, so these are the numbers for Singapore. So we're talking about huge numbers. So in Philippines, $1-2 billion of trade. In the case of Singapore, UK, you're talking about 20 billion pounds of trade. So the difference is very large. It's like 10 to 1, right? In terms of Singapore UK ties, economic ties. And with Vietnam, they actually also have a free trade agreement. So those are a number of things that we still have to talk about, Makameta. There are a lot of things that we have to improve. So I hope with President Marcos there, this is not just about the pomp and pageantry. This is not about just nostalgia. This is not just about his, penchant for British culture and all, but this is about efforts to effectively push the boundary of bilateral relations, because economically sobrang underdeveloped. Strategically, there's a lot of potential, but we have to push the envelope also. And who knows, when it comes to people to people relations, baka naman punta na tayo sa UK, mag-aaral na rin tayo sa UK. Balita ko isang vlogger nag-aaral na sa UK. In fairness sa kanya, nag-aaral na talaga siya. Yan, in fairness, ha. In fairness naman, dun sa vlogger troll na yan. In fairness, nag-effort talaga. Alright, I'll keep it there, mga kameta. Medyo napagod na tayo. Mahabang araw yun. Di pa ako tapos, habol pa ako dun sa ibang work. Thank you very much nga sa lahat ng mga sumuporta sa atin. Thank you kay Filipina Abroad. Salamat kay Joe Shalan, kay Andre Llamas, kay Ma'am Jocelyn Lumber. Thank you so much sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat dito. Thank you din dito sa kabila, sa mga kaibigan natin. Maraming natuwa dyan, ha. Almonte, Arvin Van, Noemi Tablare, yan. Yan, talagang ano. Mia Fresnido, Vida Soriano, June Ignacio joining us from Toronto, Madrigal Heya, Maricel Mandel, yan. Mila Bigan, yan. British aficionado. Tuwan-tuwa siya dun, ha? Marami natuwa doon. Pero di ba, paras ng ano eh, ano namin? Puro katats talaga eh. Alright. Okay, mga kapatid there. Thank you very much, guys. And have a good weekend. And have a blessed Sabbath day. And talk to you soon, God willing. Salamat. Salamat.